I'm just wondering if they even realize that they have passed on. I mean, I've had some psychics on the show saying a lot of times when people pass on, they're trapped on Earth, or they don't go to the next whatever, and they don't even realize that they're dead.
I think that's true. I haven't had any direct experience with that, but I think that's true. I think when you have a sudden, shocking death, like a car wreck, or like you're I don't have a massive coronary all of a sudden, or the meteor hits you or whatever, and you don't realize that you're dead. I think that is certainly possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, I've had no direct experience with that, but I think that's entirely possible.
Yeah.
And if we encountered that, we would try to tell them, hey, your time is past. It's time for you to move on.
Now, your two people that go with you, I mean, what have they encountered? Anything you can talk about that really convinced them?
Well, directly, the only thing I can honestly talk about is the stuff that I've experienced with them. But they have been, both of Dwight and Rhonda have been doing this all of their lives, so they've had enormous experience in encountering spirits all their lives. Dwight tells me he was in a house one time. I don't think I'm relating this story, and he looked up and there was a man standing in the doorway, just standing there, full bodied, full apparition, full person. You couldn't see through him, anything like that. He thought he was a guy that had just shown up in the house. And the guy walked into another room, and Dwight said, I followed him in to find out who he was. He said, I walked into the room, and he was gone.
Oh.
There was no other door. There was no other window. He said, the guy I looked at was as solid as you and I. But when I got into the room, he was gone.
It makes you wonder on things. I had a guest on here, Liz, last week. She was a deputy sheriff for quite a few years in her district, and she's retired. But where she's at, her house is not that old, but she said that she's encountered like her refrigerator door opening and closing, her bedroom door, opening and closing. And, she kept saying, the house wasn't that old, but then, we were talking about it. I said, well, you don't know what was there before they built your house.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah, I tell people out here who come out just studying at history, I said, if a site is good for a house today, it was a good site 150 years ago. It was a good site probably 1,000 years ago, or probably 10,000 years ago. So there's no telling who all lived out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's, and then she was talking about that, that there was some kid, teenager, like walking towards her while she was taking care of her horses, and she was kind of surprised. He was wearing a hoodie, and then as fast as she saw him, he totally disappeared. So I don't know.
Dwight and Ronnie if I may, have a great story about that exact thing. And again, they wouldn't mind me telling this story. In fact, we put it in the book. They were going out to a ghost town called Charleston, which is also in the book, but you walk along a railroad track, an abandoned railroad track. You've got that gravel, that real loud, crunchy gravel. So they're walking along the track, headed toward Charleston. And out of nowhere, this young black kid shows up, teenager, late teenager, or early 20s, well-dressed. He's wearing slacks, creased slacks, polo shirt, slip-on shoes. And he walks by, and as he walks by, he says, "Stay hydrated." And they nod and said, "Okay." And then Dwight says, I took a few steps, and then said, "Wait a minute. That guy made no sound walking on the railroad track." And they turned around, and he was gone.
Just totally gone and vanished?
Totally gone. They said the guy, they looked at him, as he approached, he was as solid as you and me, and they turned around, and he was gone. And from that point, I've been to that point, they're on an elevated railroad track looking over a field on both sides. There was no place for anybody. He could not have run and hidden. It was impossible. He just disappeared. He was there, and then he wasn't. But he just, apparently his task that he had given himself was to take care of people. Drink your water. You're out in the desert, drink your water.
Oh, yeah. You know, a lot of people, they get out in the desert and they don't realize it, including me, you know, and I was like that last time with the motorcycle when it was pushing around 120 degrees.
Yeah.
I had one bottle of water and,
Oh, Lord.
you know, it was like 90 miles to the next town, you know, and I was hallucinating. So you imagine somebody out there, you know, going out in the desert, you know, doing whatever they're doing or looking for whatever they're looking for. You know, a canteen of water isn't going to last them very long.
I have run out of water back in the superstitions, and it is not a pleasant way to spend your day.
Oh, yeah.
Believe me. But I have friends come out. I'm from Louisiana, if you can't tell by my little twangy accent.
I thought you were from Nebraska, Dan.
Yeah. But, you know, in Louisiana, you know, you have tremendous humidity, and you sweat all the time. Out here, we have no humidity. And I tell my friends from Louisiana, I say, look, you're used to sweating all the time. All right, out here, you are still sweating all the time. It's just so dry, the sweat dries on your skin. So you are pumping out water as fast as you are back in Louisiana. You just don't realize it. You've got to drink a lot of water, and drink more than you think you need.
Well, you know, it's one thing I'll tell you. I'm at the age where I have to hit the bathroom, you know, quite often.
Welcome to my world.
But you know what? When I was out going through the desert, you know, I would go 10 hours, you know, riding my motorcycle in the heat.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to go to the bathroom because I was dehydrating myself, you know.
Yeah.
You know, just couldn't get enough liquid coming in, and it was not enough to go back out.
Exactly.
Other than my skin pores.
Yeah, so, yeah, when we go out, we take lots of water, and we have lots of water back at the truck when we come back. Because it'll slip up on you. I've seen it happen before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just a matter of, you know, being aware.
So you also, changing the subject a little bit, you wrote a book about missing children or missing...
Oh, yeah, I wrote a book. Rhonda and I were with a group called Find Me that we left a while back, but I wrote a book about my experiences there, and the book is called They Are Not Yet Lost, True Cases of Psychic Detecting. And we investigated cases all over the world. Mostly in the U.S., but also in Canada. We did some in Mexico. I know we did one in Ireland, Japan. We also did one in Italy. So people would call us up, and we would investigate the cases and file reports and send it off to the police. So I wrote a book about some of the more prominent cases that we were involved in, and I'm in about probably half the stories in that book using my dowsing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you have any good outcomes when you were looking and trying to, you know, find out what happened to the missing?
Well, it depends on how you define.
Well, in other words, did you find closure for the relatives or whoever?
Yeah, I would say closure. The problem with psychic detecting, and excuse for the shameless personal plug here, I've got a new book coming out in August about how to be a psychic detective. But it's called the Psychic Detecting Guidebook. But the thing about psychic detective, just the way the world is, we're kind of the last resort. In other words, the authorities, the FBI, the police, or the sheriffs, or the Forest Service, or whomever, basically say, well, we've tried everything else. Let's call the psychics. Maybe they can come up with something. So psychic detectives, good ones, should be first responders, but we're generally called in way late in the game, so by the time we get involved, it's usually a cold case. But we can provide, like I said, closure. We've done that a lot.
How hard is it emotionally on you when you were doing that?
Some people can't handle it. I like dowsing because it's pretty unemotional. I can sit in my room and I can dowse a map, and I generally do not get emotionally involved with that type of work. Sometimes it does come on you. Sometimes it's overpowering. And I used to do search and rescue, and with my dowsing, that can be quite emotional because you're around people who are directly affected by the emotion of the situation. But I've known psychics, and very talented psychics, who have had to quit psychic detecting simply because it's too powerful. A woman friend of mine, she said, when I go into a case, she said, if a woman has been raped and murdered, she says, I experience that. I feel exactly what she feels, and I can't handle that. And you can't blame them.
Well, I really believe that because I had a psychic, and I had her on the show I think 3 times so far in the last 11 months, and she said sometimes it would get so bad that when the people would leave, it didn't leave. I mean, it was there emotionally that she suffered the whatever they were going through. She ended up, suffering the same thing, and it took a long time to, recover. She said at times it actually would even make her, dreadfully ill.
Well, imagine, if you're a psychic and you're experiencing, say you're going into your meditation and you experience someone who had been knifed or gassed or shot or maybe drowned, murdered, and to go through not only the pain of that, but the terror of it. You could imagine why people would not want to put themselves through that, even though it would be for a greater cause. That could ruin your day.
Oh yeah, and she said in one case that actually where she was at, it actually followed her home, and I have to believe I take what everybody tells me as truth, unless somebody can tell me it's not. But she said that her boyfriend at the time was looking at her like something was wrong with her, because she would say, "Hey, look at all these scratches on me," and she said she was getting like scratches on her legs and arms just instantly, with no, she wasn't doing it; it just would appear. And her boyfriend kind of was really doubting her. And then all of a sudden it happened right in front of him. They were talking, and all of a sudden, some deep scratches and some blood started coming out, and he saw it. And, and just, that's the bad part. I mean, if you can get stuck with, I guess, some baggage that you don't want to be stuck with.
Yeah, you'll have to free yourself from it. We did an investigation. There's a good side of that I can mention in a minute. Let me tell you this, though. There's a site we investigated called the Killing Grounds. It's down in South Arizona, where there was a big shootout between a cult and the authorities, and several people were killed. And it's in the middle of a small town, and it's a block. It's a block in town. It's just a deserted block. There's no buildings on it, just grown-up weeds and small trees. But there was, a shootout there, and we went down there to investigate that, and that's going to be in our book number 2. But we went down there, and we parked. And Dwight had been there before. He said, "I'm going to sit on the side of the road by the cars, and I'm going to keep an eye out on the neighbors, because somebody needs to keep a watch out, because it was still a tense area." He said, "But also, I don't want to walk out there." And so Rhonda and I decided, well, we'll go out there and see what we can find, and we did a session. But the minute we stepped off the pavement onto that ground, that dirt area, I got sick. I got nauseous, just like that. It was just instantaneous. And I stepped back and I stepped off the pavement, and I was okay. I said, wait a minute. So I stepped back onto the killing field, and I got sick again. Stepped off, I was okay. So I stepped back on the killing field, and I was nauseous again. And I went through the whole session that Rhonda and I did, just feeling nauseous. And as soon as we finished the session and left, the nausea went away. And we went a couple of blocks down the road, and we saged ourselves just to get rid of any nastiness that might be hanging on.
Oh, wow. May I ask you your age, roughly?
I am 68.
Okay. You're about the same age as me. I'm 2 years younger than you.
Whippersnapper.
Hey.
Yeah, youngster.
Hey, sometimes. It just makes me really, open my eyes a lot, to like the afterlife, when you think you die, I've really come to the conclusion that you don't die. You just kind of transform into something else, the next cycle. Because, if we were just gone, you wouldn't be able to get what you get. Or, a lot of people getting these images and sounds and all that stuff. It tells you, something is there. Hey, I got to do a commercial. I'm going to put you on hold for like 2 minutes.
I'll be here. I'm enjoying it, Gary. You're doing a very good job. Thank you.
Okay.
You're making it easy.
Okay. Well, I can make it harder. So I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to put you on hold for 2 minutes. Not going to hang up, and we'll be right back. Yeah, it just makes me wonder, about life after death, what it's really like.
You're listening to Night Dreams Radio. with Gary Anderson.
Hey, this is Gary from Night Dreams Talk Radio. I want to welcome a new sponsor to our show, PhoenixShaving.com. I know what you're thinking, right? Oh, another disposable razor company. Well, the fact is they're not. You remember the razors that your father and his father shaved with? Did you ever notice they didn't have, well, the embarrassing razor